Ever wondered how websites like Google, YouTube come to life? It all starts with HTML, the foundation of every web page. Hi, I'm Patrick from the Code Lovers Academy. Well, in this series, we will dive into HTML and build some awesome websites together. But first, we need to look at the basics to help us get started in this journey. This video is meant for you who is starting out to learn web development, you who wants to remind yourself of certain concepts of HTML. Probably you studied this in school and you need something to remind you of certain concepts. Probably you've not been practicing. This will be good for you. And then you can also recommend it to your family, to your friends who are interested in learning web development. So in this particular video, we'll be looking at what is HTML, what are the tools that you need to start working with HTML, and certain concepts, the terms that common terms used in web development. We'll also look at that. And then we will finalize by looking at the, we need to look at the browser where you'll be able to view your HTML once you've written your first HTML file. And then we'll also take a look at the HTML, how the HTML actually looks, how the file looks, how the code looks when it's written in the code editor. So we'll also look at that. And then I'll also recommend to you some of the code editors that you can use to write your HTML file. Okay, so we move on to the next slide. So what is HTML? HTML is an acronym that stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is the standard language used to create and structure content on the web. We can look at this as a skeleton structure. If your body is has a skeleton, it could be your bones that give you the structure of your body. But we could also use an example of a house. Maybe you're building a house. The mortar, the bricks that give that building a structure. Before you start thinking of decorating your house and all that, we're looking at that structure. So that is an HTML file. It's just a structure. We also need to look at certain terms. What are the common terms that you will meet, that you will hear people talk about when you come into the web development world? One of the terms that I want us to look at is the web page. A web page is a single page on the World Wide Web with its own address. And then there's also website. Now, a website is a combination of web pages put together under a common domain name. We will look at this further to highlight this. And then we also have a domain name. This is an address where internet users can access your website. Then we have metadata. This is information about one or more aspects of the data. Then we also have uniform resource locator, which is the URL, a web address that specifies the location of a resource on the internet. So basically, these are the common terms that you'll hear. There are also more, but these are mostly the common terms that you'll hear as you continue learning about web development. Yeah. In the next slide, we'll also look at how does HTML work in the browser. Like how are you able to write your HTML file and actually preview it in the browser? So HTML is interpreted by the browser to display content. Now let's see, on your left-hand hand, you'll see your HTML code. This is basically how the HTML code looks. So the first tag is the doc type, which is specified as an HTML file. Now doc type, this declares the document type, and in this case, it is HTML. And then we have the HTML tag. It's a root element of the HTML document. So this encloses the whole HTML file, as you can see here. And then we have the head. The head element. The head element encloses, it has the metadata, just as we saw before. But this can have the title, like in this case, the title of the web page that you're working on. Just in this case, as you can see, my first HTML page, that is the title of this web page. And then we have the body element that is enclosing the whole content of the web page. This is what appears on the web page when you preview it. So here you can see we have the header, which is hello world. We have the paragraph, and we also have a link here. So on your right hand side is the browser preview. So you can see when we preview this file, we're able to see that there is a header here, which is hello world, and there's a paragraph. This is a paragraph of text. And then we have a link here that you can click to take you to the address that has been specified on your HTML file. So basically that is this. And we will go into the next slide and look at the HTML tags and elements. Just as I've seen in the previous slide, we looked at different HTML tags. You heard me talk about tags and elements. I know that's a bit confusing, but HTML tags are keywords enclosed in an angle bracket, just as you see here, that defines, these are angle brackets. That defines the start and the end of the element. So as you look at this example, this H1, this is a heading, is an opening tag. The closing tag has a slash at the beginning. That's the closing tag. Elements is a complete structure, including the opening tag, the content, and the closing tag. Just as you see an example here, this is termed as an element, an HTML element, because it has the tags, the opening tag and the closing tag, and then it also contains the content, which is welcome to my web page. So what you can take from here is HTML tags are simply these tags with angle brackets specifying, let's say in this case, the heading, but in other cases can be the paragraph or any other tag. But an HTML element is complete with its content included. Let's also look at the key features of HTML. HTML integrates with CSS and JavaScript. That means CSS can be imported into an HTML file to be able to style the HTML file, give it the color, and then JavaScript can also be used in the HTML files to give it the interactivity. We will look at that further as we continue with this course. It also defines the content structure using elements like headings, paragraphs, lists, and tables. So the HTML can define the content structure using different HTML elements. And some of these HTML elements are like the heading. Just as you can see in the example that we gave the elements, this is the heading of the page. So that's one of the content that is displayed on the HTML file. Then we can also have paragraphs. We can also have tables. We can have lists. We can have many of them. Another point is HTML works across all devices and browsers without compatibility issues. So you can use any browser to be able to view your HTML file. It enables embedding of images, videos, and audio files. You can want to tag in some videos, to put in some videos in your HTML file. You can want some images in your web page. You can also want audio files in your web page. All this can be incorporated into the HTML using HTML on your web page. HTML also connects web pages via links, forming the backbone of the World Wide Web. So that's briefly a simple explanation of the HTML tags and elements and some of the features that HTML it can provide for you to be able to create a web page. In the next slide, we will look at some of the tools that you need to get started working with HTML. So one of the tools that you need a text editor. In this case, I recommend Visual Studio Code. Why? Visual Studio Code is very easy to use, it's user-friendly. It has a very user-friendly interface. It highlights your syntax. We'll look at what that means. It has some extensions for productivity, like Live Server. You're able to uh, preview your file from the browser just by clicking somewhere on the code editor. It also has extensions like Prettier that helps you organize your code. And then we also need a browser. We also need a browser to be able to preview our HTML file. So some of the browsers, there are so many browsers, you can use any of them. There's Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari. In this case, I would recommend Chrome. It's popularly used and it's easier to use to me. And then you can also access developer tools from your browser that helps you to debug. It can help you to check for some errors. In case you get errors in your code, you can easily use the developer tools to check like where is the problem coming from. The next slide will also look at how do you get started. There are only 3 simple steps to get started. The first step, you need to download and install VS Code. As I've put the process here that you can follow to download. You also need to install the browser of your own choice. There's also a process here you can install. I would recommend Chrome as well. For the code editor, I would recommend Visual Studio Code because that's what we'll be using in this series all through. We also need to create your first HTML file. Now, when you're creating your first HTML file, it needs to have a .html extension. We'll look at that. The example is here. You can use, for example, index.html, but it should have that .html extension that is able to tell a browser that this is an HTML file. So basically, these are the 3 steps that you need to start with to be able to actually create your first web page. In the next slide, this is done. Like if you have the things, you have the code editor, you have the browser in place, you are now ready actually to create your first web page. And I still insist that take time. I will actually link I will link the address that you will be able to use to download the code editor Visual Studio Code. I will also put in a link for how you can download Chrome, the web browser, in the description below so that you can get yourself ready. But also in the next videos, we'll also be looking at, I'll also take you through how you can download this so that by the time we start looking at an example, everyone of us, we are at par. Everyone has the required tools to be able to start like working on our first example. So basically that is that. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. Now we are ready to start working on our very fast HTML file in this case. And yeah, that's it. This video was see you in the next video. Thank you.